Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this 92nd edition of Clarity Chat. Um, this is a little bit like an AMA session, but we are covering a theme. Of course, taking your feedback that we need to have a theme for every Clarity Chat. Today, we are discussing an important theme: leveraging the power of effective KPIs via balanced scorecard. Well, today I will be boring you with a presentation, but don't worry, it won't be boring, and we'll have some nice imagery as well. Well, we all have heard stories of companies which have had stellar financial performance, but unfortunately they vanished in quick time. Now, as we keep saying that the technology is necessary but not sufficient. In a similar vein, we can say that financial performance is necessary but not sufficient for a healthy and resilient business. Um, so the balanced scorecard is a strategic performance measurement and management framework introduced by Robert Kaplan and David Norton in the 1990s. They studied companies, which had great financial performance, vanished, and then there were companies which had great financial performance, and they continued delivering year after year, and they looked at the measurement systems, and the balance scorecard came out of it. So the framework takes care of the limitations of the traditional financial measures and provides a more balanced and strategic view of organization performance. Now I was introduced to this as part of my training in Tata Motors, initial years, being part of some strategic working groups. I still remember the book that was given to me. At that time, actually, I read that book to fall asleep in Mumbai trains. So, the fun moment, what has been one big contribution of balance scorecard to me, and in a fun way, it has been to put me to sleep in Mumbai trains. I used to carry this in my bag. I'd get on the train, get a seat, and read this, and within a page, I would fall asleep. And then I'll get up on VT, and the same thing will repeat on my way from VT to Thane. But I must say that I've really slept over this book quite a lot, so I've really internalized it, and I have been, the principles are very important. While it is for organizations to sort of lay out their strategy in terms of a scorecard, I have used it even as a department when I was in customer service, when I was in dealer development. I was once called by a very, very senior person to sort of have a brainstorming with him to define a balanced scorecard for the company itself. And then, I have continued doing it. So I used it in my CRM stint. I used it in my, when I was a CIO. And that means that the principles are timeless. The principles of balanced scorecard are timeless. And we will go through a little bit of a presentation today, to show you what it is and how it works and how it operates. And the whole idea is to help you get those first principles around balanced scorecard, so that you can also create a powerful performance framework for your own, for yourself and your department as well, right? So Well, I'm sure, as we go through it, it will tell you things that you have seen elsewhere. You will get thoughts that, hey, I have used something else. And then, please do share those in comments with us, and let's have a healthy discussion so that I don't bore you with my presentation. Okay. Well, I can see already some comments coming in, but let me acknowledge my audience. Um, unless your comments come in, I feel like sitting in a small room, talking to my computer, and just trusting that somewhere the voice will be broadcast around. But when your comments come in, that tells me that I'm not alone, and I'm talking to people. So please keep your comments flowing in. We have some very august audience in this. We have founders, CXOs, technology managers, people from both sides of the technology playground, and we all come here to discuss, debate, get insights on the fact that technology is necessary but not sufficient, and what else can we do to improve its effectiveness. Scorecards are one very important one. I have seen very few people use any kind of strategic scorecards for IT, and I'm going to show you some here. Okay, so let me share my presentation with you here. Yeah, so balance scorecard is like this, but not precariously perched like this, but very, very, as you can see, these stones are interconnected. That's one of the ways they get interconnected. Um, Wait, why is my mouse not going out? Okay. Why is this screen not moving up? Okay. I seem to have a bit of a trouble here, guys. Let me see if I can do something about it. I just need to disconnect my screen, connect it again, and see if it comes. Okay, yeah, so there we go. We do have it here. Um, okay, yes. So the balance scorecard, as this is a statement from Mr. Kaplan. It provides managers with instrumentation they need to navigate to future competitive success. So the important keyword is future competitive success. So typical measures actually show you what you have done in the past, but with a balanced scorecard, you learn about and it's all about leading metrics. We will come to those definitions. Well, I think there are companies which failed despite great financial performance. You know the names out there. Stellar financial performance, but then probably they were, looking only in the rear view mirror. They were not looking at the windshield, and they crashed somewhere. So the background of BSC is that, so these two gentlemen, Mr. Norton and Kaplan, they were intrigued about, like, why do financially successful companies fail? And so then they kind of, like, looked at companies which failed and companies which were resilient even though they went through bad times. and they came up with this fact that financial metrics alone are not sufficient for organization performance. Now, why? Because if you see, the financial metrics are actually trailing measures. Okay, these are your revenue, profitability, market share, you know, anything that tells you how you have done in the past, right? But then there are, so think of them like a rear view mirror. Can you drive a car with a rear view mirror? No. You need to drive a car looking at the windshield. That means you need to know in advance, what are the roadblocks coming? Are there any speed breakers? Are there any traffic lights? Now, these are called leading measures. So what are leading measures? These are, for example, the quality of your sales pipeline, right? If it is healthy, you will have, you will have a good quarter. Customer satisfaction. If your customers are satisfied, you're likely to have great retention rates. Product quality. If your quality is good, you're likely to have better customer satisfaction, and therefore you're likely to have, more sales. Talent retention. If you're losing talent rapidly, can you really be assured of great financial performance or great processes or great customer performance? No, right? So these are things that tell you today how you're going to be doing in the future. Okay. So a balanced scorecard is a balance of trailing measures and leading measures, and it creates a framework which I will show you how that framework acts. Okay, and how we design that framework. But before I go to the framework itself, I can see a lot of comments coming in here, and let me acknowledge. Let me bring them up who all are here. And guys, if any one of you are there, please put your name and where you're joining from so that I can bring you up here and I can say hello to you. Hi, Ravikant, joining us from Delhi. Hero, thanks for joining. Hi, Nitin. Nitin is joining us from Bangalore. Hi, Bhupendra. Joining us from Oman. Great topic, KPI and BSC. Thank you. Yes, this has been very close to my heart. And if you really want to align the organization, the one common metric, one common language that you have to speak is like, what are those KPIs and what they mean, right? Thanks, Rakesh, for joining us. And we also have the Tatre from Oman. So we have, wow, Oman today. Okay. Both Dattatreya and Bhupendra joining us from there. So, Bhupendra, you have a question. What's the good time to start BSC as a standalone initiative or combine it with systems like ERP, CRM getting implemented or upgraded? The way we see anything in IT happening, I know this question is linked to, I think, dashboards and analytics and all that, Bhupendra, but everything has to start physically first. There has to be a process, and then it has to get digitized. So I think the first things first, we have to design a balanced scorecard. We have to identify what are the KPIs which are important. There's a certain process to do that, which I am going to come just after this. And once you have followed that process, you know what your KPIs are, you know what your strategic initiatives are. You have defined what these KPIs mean. It's not just enough to put a KPI out there. It's important to define, what it includes, what it does not, etc. So there's a process that you go through, and once you're very, very clear, then comes you have shared it with everyone. What's a scorecard which others do not know about and which people don't kind of align on. So that's when, you can start thinking about automating it. Now, scorecards are not something that you really measure on a day-to-day basis, because these are primarily strategy related scorecards. They are not operating level scorecards that you monitor on a day-to-day basis, like for example the number of open complaints or number of open tickets, or P1 tickets. You're not looking at them. You're not looking at BSC on a day-to-day basis. So you generally do it month-on-month basis. So it's perfectly okay if they are not automated. I never automated them. and therefore, like, there's a little bit less anxiety amongst people as well, if you know what I mean. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. But as we go through the presentation, you will see how the whole thing, like, works out. It's not just a simple scorecard; it's a complete framework in itself. So we have someone joining us from Pune. I suspect if it is Mr. Sethi and he's in Pune, and I'll be very disappointed because I'm in Pune and, like, he didn't tell me and he's joining me on Clarity Chat. So anyway, so whoever you are, please share your name as well. Okay, let's get ahead with the presentation now. Okay. So we said there are leading measures and trailing measures, and all of them get combined. So how do we organize these? Okay. So this is a balanced scorecard has four dimensions or four categories as it. One is financial, customer relationship, internal processes, and education and growth. Education and growth can also be taken a little larger in terms of capabilities, right? So I actually used to include, capabilities like, for example, partners. It's your organization alone is not sufficient. If I have a strategic partner who is, pushing me towards growth, I would call that as, in this capability dimension. Similarly, like, the health of your dealership network, right? So I would even include there, or even technologies, right? So if I have a strategic, technology capability, I will include it here. So how does this work? So let's understand this. See, you you want to achieve. Everyone wants to achieve certain financial performance. And let's talk of organizations right now, and then we'll come to the departments if you are a department head or a CIO. So you first define your financial performance that, hey, I want to achieve this kind of revenue, this kind of profitability. And then where, I mean, where is that revenue going to come from? Where is that profitability going to come from? There's only one person who pays all the bills in your company, whether your salary or, your subordinate salary or your partner's, bills. There's only one person, which is customer. So you need to think through, you need to think backwards that how am I going to make my customers pay for it? Of course, you can't put a gun on their head. So, you need to improve your services. You need to improve your portfolio of services. You need to give value-added services. You probably need to go to export markets. You need to, let's say, for example, improve your account management capabilities. So whatever you want to do on the customer dimension, sort of falls here, right? So end of the day, it's all KPIs. So, you have to define, okay, so what's my customer retention rate? What's my customer satisfaction rate? What's my delivery performance? And then how are you going to make your customers happy, to make them pay? It is basically your organizational processes, right? So if you have a great operating set of processes, your customers are going to get, like, very, very consistent service, whether it's supplies, whether it is complaint management, whether it is, let's say, relationship management, which is account management. It's all going to all of these processes, if they are set up nicely, automated, the KPIs are in place, your customers are going to get a consistent and reliable levels of service. But now, these processes, how are these processes going to run? These processes are going to run with some people. There are process owners, right? Every process in the organization is run by somebody or the other. And now you need to invest in them. So if your people are highly motivated, you're communicating well with them, you're paying them well, you're retaining them, then, you're more likely than not, your processes are going to be reliable, your processes are going to run smoothly without any disruptions, and therefore your customers are going to, be satisfied, and therefore, you are going to achieve your financial performance. So that's the whole balanced scorecard. So tell me what kind of thoughts it triggers into your mind. Did you hear something like this before? and let me then move on. Okay. So whatever kind of thoughts it gives you, please do share, and we will discuss on that. And by the way, the guy joining from Pune is Akshay Mehta. My team tells me, hi Akshay. I think it's your privacy setting on LinkedIn that doesn't show your name here, but that's okay. Welcome, and I hope you're driving some value from it. Okay, so all of this, of course, centered around your vision and strategy. You need to be very clear. What are you going after? And I had once written a post about strategy, which was a strategy is more about what you're not going to do than about what you're going to do. Right? There's so much in this world. You can be doing anything. You can be kind of like, you can be everywhere. But if you're very clear that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, and there comes your strategy that, hey, now I am much more clear what I'm going to do, right? So strategy and vision comes at the center, defines your financial performance, defines your customer KPIs. They get delivered through certain processes, and you need to have KPIs there. And those processes are being run by people, and you need to have those people KPIs. And of course, the other capability KPIs, anything that contributes to your processes. Okay. So now here is like, what is called a strategy map. Now you can actually come up with a number of KPIs, So how do you know that these are the right KPIs for me? Okay. Now this is where the strategy map comes. That means you just parse your KPIs in these 4 dimensions, and then try to create a cause-effect relationship, right? For example, in this case, if you see, let's say you are implementing a new supply chain system, and that's going to improve your supply chain performance, and that's an investment in your supply chain. That's going to improve your stock reliability. Your customers are going to get their material supplies, consistently and with, let's say, low lead time, with better predictability. That is going to improve your customer satisfaction, and it's going to decrease your operating cost, right? It's going to increase your profitability, and that's the kind of cause effect relationships. Once you start mapping them, you will realize that there are some, you can say there's wish list KPIs which have nothing to do with, like, upwards or downwards. Okay. I have done scorecards. People give a laundry list of KPIs, and the only way to make sense of it in terms of what is strategic and what is not is when you do a strategy map like this. Okay. So here is the practical tip for you. You have a set of KPIs, whatever they are, put them in these 4 sets, and then try to connect them and see, like, is there a cause effect relationship. So Bhupendra, that should partly answer your question, that the starting point is a set of KPIs that you have, and then identify the strategic ones, those who have a cause effect relationship with each other, right? As I said, drop a KPI which doesn't connect to other KPIs. Okay. So building up to the BSC, so defining your strategy. So how do we do that? Okay. So, but first of all, right, why do we need a strategy? Whether it's an IT strategy, or, like, your sales strategy, or your people strategy, we have to understand that whatever you have in terms of how you want to execute it, how you want to get to your vision, what way and how you want to do it. You're not the only one who's doing it. You have people, you have partners, you have your bosses who need to support you in doing that. You have your subordinates who need to be, who need to commit to your vision or your plans. And you need a strategy, whether it's at a team level, whether it's at a department level, division level, or company level. You need to articulate your plans in terms of a strategy. Okay. And you need to and you need a strategy so that you can communicate it to people. You can seek buy-in of your bosses. You can also, unless you put it in writing somewhere, you also will be able to do a proper risk management on it. identify that, hey, I want to do all of this. What all can go wrong with this? And that becomes your risk charter, right? And finally, to take and delegate responsibility, to delegate accountability. So when you have, let's say, something like a balance scorecard, you are able to delegate those KPIs to people, you're able to devolve them, and then you're able to hold people accountable. But still, everyone is in alignment because all of this, boils up to the same scorecard, right? So, so let me give you again. This is a practical hack. Okay, how do you build a strategy? Okay, so let's say you're a startup, right? Or you're a technology organization. So you decide, the first thing that you comes to anybody's mind is, I want to be so many $1 million company in so many years. I want to be, let's say, 50 million company in the 5 years, right? Now the next question you ask is, that's how you develop the BSC. You know, where will I get those customers who are going to pay me 50 million? Okay. So let's say you define that, hey, you know what, I'm mostly in India. So I want to develop customers overseas. Let's say that's one of your vectors. There can be others, right? I want to tap into this particular sector. I want to create industry solutions. There can be many things that you need to think through in terms of getting to that number that you have in your mind. And then you put it there and you start looking at some KPIs there. Then what you need to ask a question is that, hey, if to do this, what kind of process I need to institute? Like, for example, if I want to sell abroad and get higher margin business, then what do I need? Either I need to appoint somebody outside, or let's say I want to find partners overseas, right? So let's say it says that you need to find partners overseas, okay? But then um, will you just find a partner and that guy will happily start working with you? No, you need to have processes, right? Those processes can be like, for example, how are you going to like do a due diligence on your partners? Like, is somebody going to be protecting your reputation or hurting your reputation? You find partners of all kinds, right? So, what will be a due diligence process? What will be a contracting process? What will be your knowledge sharing process, right? What will be your, let's say, joint go-to-market process, right? Etc. Etc. Right? What are the partner risks? So, what is the partner risk management process? You need to define these processes, and you don't have them today. Then comes again, who's going to do it? So we need to either acquire or build a partner management competency. So if I am thinking of going out and appointing partners, I would get some sort of a business development person whose whose key strength is appointing partners, or finding partners, and then and creating those great win-win relationships. And then I would entrust him to develop these processes that we are thinking about. So when you are thinking through a strategy, you start from financial objectives, you come to your customer objectives, you come to internal processes, and then you come to who are going to run those processes, which is people and capabilities, right? But then the next question is, okay, so in this case, let's say if I come to a full-fledged scorecard for, let's say, technology company. So, your financial metrics say, revenue, gross margins, indirect costs. Then, so how many customers I have, let's say, beyond more than 1 million, how many customers I have. Then, like, what are my number of customers, percentage customers, where I have with revenue growth, and what's my NPS score, right? Those are customer KPIs. Then you have your process KPIs, your marketing process KPIs, your resourcing process KPIs, your partnership process KPIs, your account management process KPI, and your pre-sales process KPIs, right? For example, your success rate of proposals, right? And then you come to your capabilities, that where are my those $1 million practices, right? My digital capabilities, right? AI, ML, RPA, etc. Right? What is my employee retention rate, and what's my employee satisfaction score? Now you can start thinking, in a very organized manner. Now that, hey, unless I build those $1 million practices, or these new capabilities, or keep my employees happy, how am I going to be running these processes on top of it? whether it is like account management or pre-sales or resourcing. I mean, I don't have delivery process here. So, for example, I can add a delivery process here, or let's say a quality and security process out here, right? And then they lead to your, they deliver your customer KPIs, and then they deliver your financial KPIs, right? Now, is that sufficient? No, because what you're doing is uh, these KPIs you're going to measure month on month. But what is it that's going to deliver you those KPIs? So that's when you come to the next part, which I call as a initiatives. Okay, what are your strategic initiatives? Okay, so you define that, hey, you know what, this overseas growth is one initiative, right? And let's say, this new competency building is another initiative. Let's say in that initiative you may have, let's say, signing up strategic partnerships with a certain set of OEMs. It can be, let's say, for example, getting a certain number of certifications, but you need to do there are a number of activities which will have to be done in order to achieve those KPIs. So we call them as strategic initiatives, right? So, um, so once you have defined the strategic initiative, now how do you know that these are strategic initiatives, right? So here is the control chart that you have, where what you do is you take all your KPIs and put them as columns, and take your strategic initiatives and put them as rows. And then you say that, hey, if this is a strategic initiative, this needs to impact how many KPIs is it impacting, right? And you do this impact analysis, and if you see this, like, those green on the third row, you see the green 3221, and on the second column, you see those 3022. These are basically, your you can call them as, like, your heat maps, right? So let me take this example, okay? So marketing and inside sales, this initiative is going to impact your revenue. It's going to impact your number of customers, right? It's not going to impact your key account management or your product management capability, right? So, well, the score should be 3. So, a bit of calculation mistake here. So that will get a score of 2, right? So this initiative is impacting, 2 of my KPIs, right? Now, mobile app development, revenue from new customers, no, it has no impact on that. It doesn't improve my number of customers. It doesn't improve my internal process. Maybe, what happened? Well, okay, sorry. uh, I saw that 0 there. So it can help you improve revenue. It can help you, let's say, it's an additional capability to your existing customers, etc., etc. Right? So now, when I look at my KPIs, right, I again now look at my KPIs that, how many initiatives are impacting those KPIs. And then I see that, hey, you know what? I have a KPI which none of my initiatives is impacting that KPI. And either I find an initiative, or I say that, this is an orphan KPI, right? So why are these controls important? Because there is always a problem of plenty in an organization. You ask people, hey, what all we want to measure, they will come up with 50 measures, right? But a balanced scorecard typically has not more than 15 to 20 measures. Similarly, when you come to, hey, what are the initiatives we want to take, you take a laundry list, you will come up with 100 initiatives. Again, like, how do you know that, like, which are the most important 5 or 10 initiatives I want to take? So this is what helps you control a sort of, like, crowd process, where everyone wants everything in the scorecard. Okay, so if you have faced that problem earlier, that, people have too many initiatives or too many KPIs, and you never knew how to control it, do share your challenge on the comments, and I will know that, okay, yeah, this is what makes sense actually to have it here. So, yeah, now let me come to, I see some IT guys here. So a BSc for an IT department. Um, okay, so um, so IT typically happens to be a cost center, So we have adherence to conformance to IT budgets is the first KPI. So, adherence to CapEx budget, OpEx budget. And here, we have to have a minimum, adherence. For example, if you're not spending your CapEx budget, that means CapEx budget actually builds capability for the organization. And I should be spending, and I used to tell my bosses, I don't want to save on CapEx budget because it's creating capability. And I should be shown red if I'm not able to spend 90% of my budgets, right? Because it also takes a lot of efforts to spend those budgets. Similarly, OpEx budgets. Then optimize IT costs. So cost savings through impact projects. Okay, so this used to be a family of projects we were running across the organization. And what you see here in terms of a construct is that you have this finance, customer, process, LNC perspective. That's column number one. Then you have these objectives. What's the overall objective? Then for each objective, you can have multiple KPIs. So you have, for IT budgets, you have two KPIs. For example, deliver best-in-class IT services to the customers. You have four different KPIs. We'll come to that. And so on, right? And then you have the unit of measure, the frequency of review, how frequently are we going to be reviewing it? Some things can be monthly, some things can be quarterly. But I don't see anything which is of a strategic nature being um, less than a monthly frequency. Then the interesting thing is that you need to, everything that you have in your scorecard needs to have a linkage to a higher level BSC, right? So in a corporate BSC, where is this going to sort of roll up? Okay, so that's what you have there. And then, what is your actuals? If you see, this is 2015-16 lineage, almost 8 years back. I know what's the functional target, and who's primarily accountable within my team to do that. Of course, I'm accountable for the whole scorecard, but somebody in my team needs to be responsible for that. Needs to break it down into multiple actionables or multiple, downstream KPIs, assign it to their team, and that's how it works. Now we come to this, so there are cost targets in customer. We used to run multiple satisfaction surveys. So there used to be a channel partner IT satisfaction survey. There used to be an end user IT satisfaction survey. So we defined that percentage adherence to identified action plans. So if we define, let's say, 20 action plans, how are those plans being executed, right? So then the third one was a subsidiary IT engagement score. Again, um, uh, we had many subsidiaries, so it's how are they feeling about our IT services? Then you come to processes. So in processes, a big part of IT's accountability is projects, right? So you have something take all the project milestones of all IT projects and create that. Hey, what's the percentage? What percentage of them are we? Are we on green? Are we delivering on time? And then the second here is basically projects delivered with quality, which is hot fixes less than two per project. So again, this is you're delivering. You're looking at not just the speed but also the quality of your project execution. Then we had a KPI for new technologies. So what are the number of new technologies introduced as percentage of POC? I was running 20 POCs, and how many out of those 20 POCs, what percentage have I been able to, let's say, scale up as capabilities, or I have been able to introduce a business project based on those POCs, right? If you look at delivery of IT services, another process, which is infrastructure SLAs, application SLAs, and then we had one for IT security in the process dimension, which is what is our security, quality, and compliance index. Now, again, you have to define some of these things. They may not be there already. Then we had high performance culture and attracting and retaining world-class talent. So it is so we used to run a Gallup survey. So it's again, you create an improvement plan in the Gallup survey, and what is the adherence to that plan, right? And similarly, like, the percentage of positions where we have a succession plan in place, again, we developed a process to do that. Now, this is just the starting point. Each one of these, when you're developing a scorecard for a KPI, don't look at whether you can measure it, is it there or not. I mean, most of the things may not be there, right? But first, we look at it from a developing a KPI point of view, that yes, this is what I need. And then you work backwards and then you start defining, right? So let me show you this, right? So, for example, we did a very simple, KPI definition of for an IT department, right? Now, your people also need to know that what does a KPI mean? You are like saying in one sentence, and people have lots of questions, right? So this is like just a summary view of what does each KPI mean. Like, for example, business value realization of identified IT projects. Right? This is the index, right? Now it says index is a function of tangible value in rupees scores, and intangible is score measuring deployment, functional uses, process maturity, training, and business benefits. Each intangible parameter is scored between 0 and 4, and the data is to be reported by business IT team. So very simple. Then what happens once we have defined it this way? The team basically creates that scorecard where we measure the business value of all executed projects. So Nitin has a comment here. He says that's a lot to chew. Okay. But appreciate your covering it in limited time. So Nitin, I'm like, I'm trying to, take 20 years of my experience and then trying to distill it in an hour on a very, very focused subject of KPIs. So it can be lot. It can be a lot. Okay. But I mean, the whole idea is to open our eyes to how do we convert some of these concepts into executables, and it's all a process of thinking it through, and then figuring out your own mechanisms. Did somebody ask me to define KPIs for IT department? No. But once I developed a scorecard, I was like, guys, if I don't define it well, people are going to be just giving it. They are going to take over the definitions, and everyone is going to define it to their convenience, right? So I defined it, right? So that's how it works, Nathan. So coming back here, then there's an initiative map. This is again, something where again you say that, hey, whatever I'm taking up, is it relevant to the corporate? Is somebody on up there is going to be interested in that? So we did a very simple, mapping of like, what are my IT objectives and what are my company metrics. The company had a scorecard, and like, is what kind of mapping exists, and we kind of just satisfied ourselves that, hey, whatever we are doing, it contributes somewhere. Now, let's think about it again, okay? I mentioned very clearly earlier that a strategy is a communication tool of all things. You may know what you want to do very clearly, but how do you communicate it to your bosses, your peers, your leadership, and your partners, everybody, right? So now when I put this kind of a mapping out there, tomorrow somebody asks me that, hey, this is IT BSc, but how does it relate to the corporate scorecard? I have my communication tool, which I just bring up and say, yeah, this is how it is. Tell me if you find something wrong here. And then they say, oh yeah, these guys know their stuff. They are doing what is relevant to corporate, and whatever they are doing, whatever they are creating, they're keeping an eye on the overall business objective, right? So it's a simple exercise, but it communicates a lot about how you are thinking and operating as a manager. Okay. So definitely this kind of mappings do get you some brownie points, guys. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now, there are certain risks and challenges, that you come across. You know, don't go for an overemphasis on metrics. There are lots of softer factors Um, there are quite a few, moving parts in the organization. The KPIs provide you the focus, but don't lose sight of, of the softer aspects, right? Inadequate data and measurement. Many a times you don't have sufficient data, especially in in areas like IT, like for example, sales, manufacturing, quality. It's all math driven. It's all data driven. But not everything in IT can be data driven. Okay, so therefore, um, one of the things that we have to look at is how to convert those ambiguous stuff into data. So typical things that you can use are rating skills, right? Like for example, rating from 1 to 5, right? Or let's say 1 to 10, and then start. It at least gives you some sort of a Uh, so there are measures and there are indicators. Okay, measures are precise. Indicators are, they tell you broadly where you are, and these are indicators you use for things which cannot be precise, right? So let's say, for example, project health, right? There are measures of project health. Broadly, if you have to indicate to your leadership that, hey, these are the 5 different projects I'm running, and and these are in my different zones of red, yellow, green. There is no mathematical way to take all your milestones and risks and all of that, and then say that, hey, this is my project score. So it cannot be very determinate. So what you do is, like, as a project manager, you are looking at the different metrics, and what you're then doing is, just combining that into an indicator and say that, hey, you know what, this is something like something 4 out of 5, or this is 3 out of 5. And when somebody says, hey, how, why, and how, explain this, you are able to say that, hey, you know what, this is how the scorecard for this project is, and if you really look at the weightage of different things, broadly, this is where it is. Okay, so in areas like technology, many a times you can use indicators, which are typical raters. Okay, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, etc. And many a times you can actually use these raters in a more democratic way. Okay, like for example, something you're not able to measure, you just ask 10 relevant stakeholders, maybe roll out a survey, or maybe, like, just yeah, just ask for some feedback, and based on that, like, it gives you some sort of an indication. Okay. um, Misalignment with the strategy, we discussed how those control charts allow you to align with the strategy. Your departmental scorecard passed against your organizational scorecard or your boss's scorecard. These initiatives and KPIs mapping, these are all, like, tools for aligning things together, right? Well, there are others, and balance scorecard does whatever I told you. Basically, all these mechanisms put together. These are practical mechanisms. Probably, I don't know whether you'll be able to find them in a book or a manual somewhere. But these are things that we have, that I have developed or I have learned from different places, and I have tried to execute. So that's the practical learning I wanted to leave with you. So that's what I had, and if we have any questions, we can take that. Or if there is any feedback on how you liked it, something that you want me to uh, dig a little deeper on, we can do that. Um, so I'm sort of done for now. Yeah, let me wait for some comments. Okay, we have like about 10 minutes more, so let me give you some some examples where balanced scorecard has helped me. Definitely, of course, in my advisory career, for the last 3.5 years. Um, I have been helping people develop these balance scorecards. It, I haven't been, we haven't been able to convert it into a full-fledged management system. But I think thinking through the balance scorecard, understanding the linkages, and then looking at your strategic initiatives from their impact and all, it has helped me clarify the strategy and the linkages and the cause effect relationships between your different stuff that you're doing in a fairly organized manner to different founders and CEOs, right? So I mean, that's one use. It has I'll give you a very interesting one, which was a complete bouncer for me myself. So this was when I was spending a lot of time reviewing our outsourcing. Okay, it was like fires everywhere. The partner alignment was missing. The service levels, SLA charts were okay, but on the ground, people were saying that the partner is gaming the SLAs and all that. So I basically created an initiative of outsourcing transformation. Okay, which is completely relooking at outsourcing. And the point was that, why are you doing it? So how do I explain to my management that why do we need the outsourcing transformation? Okay. Now, that was also around the time when I was refreshing the scorecard. And what I did was like everything, I just put it in the strategic initiatives, and then I started doing the initiative to KPI mapping. And to my horror, I realized that right from adherence to capex budgets, adherence to opex budgets, my customer satisfaction action plans on customer satisfaction, my SLAs, my security, capability building, each of those, we could do a tick that if we have a much stronger and better contract with our outsourcing partner, all of these things will get streamlined. I can run faster POCs, my security stance will be better, and so on. My upgrades and updates will be better, etc., etc. And then I showed it to my boss, and I said, you know what? I was looking for an answer. Why should we transform our outsourcing? And here is the balance scorecard. And do you agree with this mapping that outsourcing can help us transform all my IT KPIs? And he looked at it, asked me a couple of questions, things which we couldn't understand, and we said, yeah, you know what, this is why we should do it. So this is one answer you may get, that things that are very, very overarching, that are really transformational in nature, that you want to do. Sometimes a framework like balance scorecard can open some doors for you. It can give you some aha moments if you just use it as something to use as a framework to cross check whatever you are doing. Is it strategic enough? Is it impacting? So with all of that, right? Okay. So we have some questions here. Two questions from Sumit as well as from Nitin. So how frequently it is updated, and how frequently shall we review the progress on BSC? See, typically, when you see that Excel that I showed you, the table, for every KPI you must put a feasible and doable frequency of review. You can't review everything on a monthly basis. Like, for example, customer satisfaction, you have to see how frequently do we measure customer satisfaction as a company. So we used to do IT satisfaction surveys once every year, for our partners as well as for our end users, right? And then also our subsidiaries. So this is once a year. But then we said that what, we are not happy with this once a year measurement and then just putting it on the BSC. So we said, these scores, they result in a set of action plans, and I want to review the progress of those action plans on a monthly basis, right? So, to answer your question, Sumit, the frequency is what it is. It is an enterprise frequency, you cannot change it. But then, if you're not happy with that, let's say if it is annual and you want to be looking at it more often, just look at what does that annual translate into a monthly, quarterly, and then put into your scorecard. Okay, but it's up to you how frequently you want to review certain things, right? For example, OPEX we have to measure every month, but CAPEX you may not want to measure every month. You may want to measure every quarter because these are relatively slow-moving expenses, right? Um, Nitin, your question is how frequently it is updated. So there's a difference between how frequently you have to review it and how frequently you have to update it. Update means you have to change some KPIs. You may want to drop some KPIs. You may want to add some KPIs. You may want to drop some strategic initiatives. I think annual is a good number, Nitin. Once a year, refresh your balance scorecard, tie it up with your that performance management timeline. So when your performance management target setting starts, maybe maybe a month or so before that, align your team towards a discussion that, hey, let's look at our balance scorecard. Let's see if we are measuring everything that's of importance, number one. Then you have to refresh your targets, say what are the targets we need to take. So it actually helps you drive a good amount of conversation around, what are the KPIs, what are the targets, what are the strategic initiatives, are these strategic initiatives strategic enough, and all of that, right? Baseline methods or framework, that's a question from Nitin. So Nitin, there are actually there's enough data and information out there on balance scorecard. I heard that almost 70% of Fortune 500 companies use a balance scorecard framework. So there's enough consulting capacity also out there. So if you want to do it at an organization level, definitely you should go for any of the consulting companies who can help you. But at a managerial level, if you just follow these principles, what I mentioned, anyone can do a balance scorecard for your department. Okay. Then Nitin's other question is also mentions how we sign OLAs with other participating functions. Oh yes, you can have OLAs with other participating functions. You can put them into KPI. I mean, if you have multiple OLAs with other operating departments, you may want to consolidate them as, let's say, one KPI on your scorecard, and then and define very clearly how that KPI gets built up from underlying, let's say, OLAs and those performances. Um, but one insight I must give you: many a times we are looking up to others for defining things for us. What has really worked for me when I was developing BSC time and again is to also be able to define my own KPIs, because the framework is such, the financial, customer, process, and this one, that if you are missing something somewhere, it will show up. You will have a clear, missing linkage between cause and effect, and you will be able to identify it, and you will be able to develop a KPI for it, right? Okay, so we are just sort of about at the end of the hour. Okay. Um, Well, there is a comment from Sumit. He says, "Can you also cover the car lane and truck lane?" Oh, so yeah, we are talking of strategy and scorecard, so we can definitely cover that. So see, I always say that strategy is like a truck lane. Okay, you don't need to review it frequently, but then you just need to keep moving on it month on month, if not on day. Okay. So think of your highways. You have a right lane, which is the car lane. You have the second lane, which is like more like a SUV, MUV kind of lane, or a LCV kind of lane, and then you have the left lane, which is where, like, your long tractor trailers and all of them move. Now think about, which is the one which is the most important for the economy, which lane is the most important for the economy, and you will realize that it's the third lane, it's the left lane, because all your material movement, your oil and your food and your consumer goods, you name anything worthwhile that's needed on a day-to-day basis, it is transported by those big trucks and trailers which are moving on the left lane, and that's the slowest lane. So, anything that is worth it, okay, a lot of things which are worth it may not be moving fast, but they may be moving slow, but they move steadily. They move 24 hours. These trucks move with two drivers, and these guys take turns and they keep moving, okay, all the time, and they get you there in time. So, strategy is like that. Strategy delivers the goods. You have to deliberately, run it not as fast, because there are change management challenges also, but you have to be absolutely steady and rhythmic on it. It's like that bass drum, which, in a fast paced music, the bass drum will, like, every 2 seconds it will do dum dum dum, but that's the one that provides the rhythm to the entire music. So strategy is like that. Thank you, Sumit, for asking that question. Now, just to summarize it, the BSC as a framework was defined and designed to answer the question that, why are financially superior performing organizations sometimes not long lasting, and the solution was found in this balanced scorecard framework, um, which works on a cascade of, like, defining your financial objectives, then, thinking through what kind of customer objectives need will deliver those financial objectives, what kind of processes will deliver those customer objectives, and then what kind of capabilities and people will deliver those process objectives, and put them all as KPIs. Control these KPIs to remain strategic by developing a strategy map. Okay. These strategy maps will give you the filtration of, which KPIs are hanging out there. They're orphan, they are nice to have KPIs, and which KPIs are the ones, like, which create those strategic themes for you, right? And then you convert those into KPIs. There's a chart that we showed. You have certain objectives, KPIs, and then that's not enough. So you develop strategic initiatives. Now, again, there can be 50 strategic initiatives. So how do you control those initiatives? You list down all those initiatives, you parse all your KPIs, and then just do a impact analysis that, hey, is this a strategic initiative? How many KPIs it is addressing? And then just keep a count against each of the initiatives. How many KPIs does it impact? And there you go, you have, a list of initiatives which have highest impact on your KPIs, and those are your strategic initiatives. All the others, you drop them, right? So then, if you're a department, you can connect your KPIs, cross-link your KPIs with corporate KPIs, and that gives you good amount of not just brownie points, but good amount of credibility that, hey, whatever you're defining as your departmental KPIs, you are keeping an eye on the corporate KPIs, and how do you connect with those, right? This needs to be reviewed on a monthly basis, updated on an annual basis, and this is a good communication tool for your teams, your superiors, your partners, and everyone, and it also gives you a great amount of clarity on whatever plans you have, whatever is in your mind as a strategy. It just gets converted into a set of numbers, initiatives, etc., and you're able to align everyone towards a common agenda, right? Okay, so thanks everyone for attending, and before I say bye, I have a I have a comment that makes it all worthwhile. Bhupendra Singh, very informative, covered many aspects of BSc in a crisp manner. Thank you, Bhupendra. Thank you, Nitin, for all your questions. Um, okay, so Nitin asked the last question. Oh, now I know what was last. Don't you think we can be biased while designing self KPIs? Hey, you can be, Nitin, but then I have given you enough amount of these controls that you can like cross reference and then figure out that okay, something which is selfish, which is this thing it will bubble up in the framework. So don't worry, just follow it and you will see the power of it. Okay, guys, I think that's good for the weekend. This was a theme covering this was a BSc focused session. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I can like answer your questions over on a one-on-one call as well. And if you want my help in designing one, I can do that as well. And before I leave, thank you all for attending this. And all of those who are watching the recording of this session, thank you as well. And please don't hesitate to reach out and for any help. This is something that has really helped me in driving a very, very performance oriented culture, very, very aligned teams. And I'll be happy if this can help any one of you as well. Okay. Thank you guys. Bye bye. Have a great weekend.